Right, is that? Okay, sure. All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Priya from Malaysia, INTI, International University and Colleges. So today I'm here to share a third-party tool integrating together with Blackboard, which is called Classcraft, all right? Okay, so basically I've gamified my subject for a whole semester. I started doing this 2 semesters. It's basically Classcraft is an online gaming tool which gives the students an overall gaming system, and I connected it with a variety of tools which I'll be explaining further. So today, in my session, I'll be covering a little bit on who are these students, why do I need to add on to my work to gamify, and also a little bit of the implications of what I have been doing. So basically, these are, I teach English and communication. It's the 2 courses that my students hate. They're not good at it, but they think they're good at it. You know, so I think most English teachers will encounter, any English teachers here that shares my pain? So, like Jonathan was saying earlier, if you attended his session, he's the gatekeeper when they've done their IELTS, both, and then they come up with their degree. So I teach both the diploma and the degree students. And for them, they will tell me, English again, communication again. But then I tell them, you still make a lot of mistakes. All your other subject lectures are also making noise because of this, right? So I do not have my students do not have the motivation. And especially I teach hospitality students, the American programs, and the business school as well. So with the hospitality students, somehow or other, I usually get a class that is at 4 p.m., regardless of any semester. I'm not sure why. And every time I tell this to my management, they thought that I didn't like my 4 p.m. classes. But these are students coming at 4 p.m., not about the time, but they are always coming to my class after their kitchen class. And their kitchen class is 6 hours. So imagine them, I don't blame them, 6 hours of that class, they come in and they smell like the kitchen as well. They're all sweaty because you gotta cook, clean, everything finished, and then, so sometimes they're even late slightly for my class. So they're demotivated, all right? They are in their diploma level, both international and local Malaysian students. Their language and maturity is not that great, okay? And so I teach workplace communication. It's a subject that prepares them for the industry, for their internship later on, all right? And I usually have 40 to 55 students in a class after their kitchen class. So can you imagine? All right? Sorry. Okay, so this is how my class looks like. This is what 40 to 55, some semesters 60. All right? Now, so the main problem that I had is the engagement crisis. It's very difficult for my students. Like I mentioned, I don't really blame them. They're tired, they have no motivation, they already feel that the subject has nothing to do with hospitality, right? So it's very difficult for me to just give them tasks. I've already mentioned about the motivation. We had a very high failure rate. This subject was actually, I just took over this subject 2 semesters ago. The lecturers before this were having a lot of issues, a lot of problems. So I added on to my work saying, hey, can I take over this subject because I want to try out something new? And I regretted it, all right? And using Blackboard. Now, you have to know that in INTI, we have already started Blackboard a couple of years. All our students used it. So imagine if the student is taking 6 subjects, that is 6 lecturers, and 6 different things, everything on Blackboard. You know, we are very excited to use this tool, that tool, but think about the student. That's times 5 or times 6, and everything has to be completed. So sometimes we tend to forget to think about the student, and they are just ongoing like zombies, just doing and doing and doing, and at the end of the day, do they use the tool? Yes, but how much have they engaged, how much have they actually understood the lesson? And with the failure rate, it's such a waste that they are learning nothing, they're just completing the task. So whereas for me, why did I want to gamify is new challenges, like I've mentioned. Most of us lecturers in INTI are already using, not most, but everyone. So all of us have already been using the tools. And it's not exciting anymore like how it used to be 3-4 years ago. When you were the lecturer who knew a few tools, you were like, wow, the popular lecturer who know how to use all these tools. Today, the students know all the tools. So we needed to find a way to how to connect with the students. And like I've mentioned, it's also a motivation for me. I believe as educators, we want the best for our students. It's tiring to mark, but actually with Blackboard, if many of you all have not used it quite vastly like us, there are ways to actually reduce your marking. There are ways that you could do to reduce the time of checking your students' work, all right? And then next, peer pressure for me. Because, like I said, the culture in INTI, I'm pretty sure this is going to happen to many of you all as well. After a while of using it, if I would go back to 3-4 years ago, if you use one tool, yay. Now it's a culture for us for Blackboard. It's not an issue of who uses it. Now the problem is who can do it the best. So it's a peer pressure for most of us who started using it, and then we go like, hey, you, what tool is that? Hey, what are you doing? Every time we walk through our faculty and we look at the screen, we go like, what's that? All right, so it's kind of, in a way, the peer pressure is in a positive note, all right? Because like I've mentioned, at the end of the day, we want the best for our students, right? So, and not forgetting we have Blackboard as a great tool. So using a third application, we try to, how do we link, how do we merge this, okay? So, now, what is Classcraft? All of y'all can just go to www.classcraft.com, all right? It's like, do y'all know Warcraft? Dota, Warcraft? You see, I know all this because of my students. And because my hospitality students, 80% are boys. So when I just mention the word Warcraft, they all go like, wow, you know? I say, I don't know. Okay, do you play? No, I don't. Okay, so what Classcraft is, it's basically something like a gaming. The outlook of it is a simulation, okay, a role-playing game that leads to collaborative and supportive environment. At the end of the day, I wanted to use Classcraft so that they would go back to Blackboard and actually do the same tools that I have been using before. So my Classcraft is like a scaffolding for my students. Okay, just to give them, because the moment that I show them Classcraft and I just go to the website, they all get excited. Okay, so it's a virtual world of Classcraft inhabited by warriors, healers. Okay, you have weapons and those sort of things. So it's totally like a gaming system. So so why do I add this to my classroom? Number one, it gives ownership to my students. So they would need to, it's a challenge, as in it's more work for the student and for me. But in Classcraft, there are many templates. So basically, I just needed to look for templates. So if you teach maths, if you teach management, if you teach humanities, psychology, there are many, many, many templates. There are many, many, many teachers who have done various things. So you are just copying their template and using it for your class, right? So the main aim, if you're still confused, is my main aim is I want them to look at Blackboard and be excited to complete the task because of this game. So I'm just cheating them in a way, and I do give them marks. So I tell them that yes, it's a lot of work for you to do, but think about it. If you just complete this task, and if you go to your Blackboard and complete that task, I give you 2%. It's the same if I gave you a quiz. Now, giving you a quiz is much easier for me. But the question is, can you score that 2%? And they all tell me, I want to complete a task. So I give the choice to them. I explain to them, why am I doing this? Because they are quite weak when it comes to quizzes. So I try to mix and match and prepare them. So I removed my quizzes and I prepare them for a higher weightage for one test. Okay? So it also increases engagement and participation. So I mentioned that they're always tired and sleepy when they come to class. So when they complete this task, when they come to my class, they try to show off with their friends and they say, hey, I've got this power. So there is some engagement that I can connect. And then, because I'm teaching workplace communication, I try to link with the issues they had in their previous class, and then the same issue that they had during the game, and give them a case study. So instead of case studies that I find online or from textbook, I create real case studies that happen. So if the game was, let's say, level 1, they were supposed to, let's say, team A needs to kill team B, and in order to kill team B, they needed to finish this task. If something went wrong, so I tell them, what happened? What was the leadership skills? Who made the error? Okay? And so this encourages collaboration, a lot of critical thinking. I always would complain. I always use this word and tell them that you guys, you're immature, which you cannot score in my case studies. It's not because most of my students, to them, they want to study the theory, and then in the exam, they answer exactly based on my notes. So they just memorize it, and that's the reason why they fail. Because in case studies, you can't just put theories. You got to give me your opinion, your ideas, and that's where they can't connect. So with the games, I can have discussions. So they would have played the game on their own in class, back at home. So when they come over to class, I can do different activities and connect it with the topics that I'm teaching them. So when they're discussing, they do not realize that they are actually trying to solve certain issues. And then I tell them, okay, now you write. Then it's like a light bulb moment. They go like, oh, and then they say, oh, is this how you do it? I say, yes. All right? And so it helps non-traditional students engage with the course materials. Do all the students love this? No. I'll be honest and say that the answer is no. But because of what I've researched of my class, like I said, I teach 5 different subjects, 4 to 5 a semester. But I only use this for my hospitality students because I think it will not work in my other classes. So you have to research when we use any third-party tools, not necessarily just Classcraft. There's so many tools out there, but we got to do a little bit research and see if it works for the class, all right? And then it links with various Blackboard tools. With just one game of this, I'm able to hit most of the tools on Blackboard. All right. Let me see. Okay, wait. So let me just go through here and then I'll talk about the tools that I've used. So this is how Classcraft actually looks like. So this 3 things prepares them for their test 1. So I tell them that each level prepares you for a certain task. So let's say the first one, I will give them an introduction. There's an introduction video. You can create stories in it, right? So you see, the moment they see this, it's like, wow. But usually after at the end, they feel cheated. Then they tell me that, Miss, actually that game is to study, right? It wasn't playing. And then I tell them, but look at your results. Is it better? And then they go, okay, I'll never win with you. All right? So, okay. So this is how I created. So this is one of the topic, which is barriers to communication. So you see here, I'll just read out. So in your groups, choose a specific communication barrier, refer to the notes, and come up with a short video around 1 minute. You see, the aim I mentioned earlier is not for them to like do quizzes and study. I want it to be more fun. So I tell them to create this video. All right? Now, this video will show a clear picture on a specific barrier that you have chosen. You have to submit the video on Blackboard, on Kaltura, and give comments to your peers, a minimum of 2 videos. The submission of the video is the communication barrier folder. So what they are doing here is, they know that after completing this, they would need to go to their Blackboard. All right? So they would use the Kaltura video. All right, I give them the due date, and then if you see here, I'm trying to make them do more research, more practices. So you see this? This is my pulling point here. Wait, there's an obstacle. In order to obtain full marks, all your members would need to go to the link below and complete. If any of, see, I read that complete, ... over there, right? So the reason why I do that is because I want them to find out what it is. So basically, when you click at that, it's a simple question telling you what are the 7 barriers that you have learned in class. So if they don't know, they need to go to the notes. You see how I'm cheating them? Okay, and then you see this is the fun part for me. If any of your group members fail to go to the link, marks will be deducted from the video. Because this is a group effort, now I tell them, because you see, when it comes to a group, sometimes we realize that the good ones will do all the tasks. So what happens to the weaker students? They are left out. So now, they need to take care of their groups in order to get, so when they submit this 1 minute video, I give them 2 marks. And this whole thing is just for them to study. Is for them to, so you see, we have to play a little bit of psychology with the students, right? So I put their Google form over here, and then they just complete it. So then I just check with their names. Sometimes I don't check the names, but I know they all have done it, all right? So I'll just check with the group members. Have your members done? Have your members completed this, okay? So the implications and feedback. So I used a test, all right, from previous semesters, and from this I saw a great differences. Okay, so you see from here, some of the students here, and what I've done is I do a pre-test at the beginning of the semester just to check on their language, a little bit on their study skills, a little bit. So I get to see, so with the hospitality students, we see a similarity with the, there's usually, they are from average to low average students. 90% of the students, both local and international students, prefer speaking in their mother tongue. All right, many of them, only when you force them to speak in English, then they would speak in English, all right? So I had a great result over here. Like I've mentioned, it's still in process. I just started this 2 semesters ago, all right? And the tools that I've used on Blackboard, all right? Let me see if okay. So what are some of the tools that I've used are Kaltura video. I've done the quizzes. We have done discussion. I've used the wiki. I've used many, many, many other tools. Most of the tools, actually. It hits all the tools. But like I said, we're not here to just brag about how many tools that we use. All right? Each tool has its strengths for the students. So, like for example, the discussion, I want them to comment on their peers, where I do peer evaluation, where so what I've done is, I've reduced giving them exercises based on the theories. Like, okay, answer question 1. I've stopped doing that. I think it doesn't work. They just look at my notes and copy, or with Google you can do all sorts of things. And it's an exercise. Because the first thing when we give, I'm not sure, but in Malaysia, the culture, you give a task, students will raise their hands if you ask any question, and you know what's the question? Teacher, I give you the exact way of saying, teacher, got marks or not? Got marks or not? That's exactly how my students would ask me. So when I say there's no marks, then I will get a copy pasted from Google, and you can't say anything because there isn't much that you could do. But if I ask them to give with discussion, so discussion is a great, great, great tool, all right? Discussion, and then towards the end, I will give them a reflection. All right. Sometimes I prefer the reflection to be in a form of a discussion in class, because I realized, like when the first time I did with Classcraft, it was a mess. But when I asked the students for feedback, they gave me wonderful things of feedback. So I realized they're just lying. So when I asked in class, is this true? They laughed and said no. Then I said, why aren't you writing that? They said, our names are there. You might penalize me. So then I realized that. So instead of doing that, I gave them a reflection on the task. Instead of asking, how great is this? Because some students tell me, why are you doing this? Why is it so much of work? Okay? So it's basically what is my main aim here is to have relevant practice. Because like I mentioned, my aim is to decrease the failure rate. Because previously the failure rate was really, really high. In every semester, based on my other fellow colleagues, we would have at least 20% of failure rate. Last semester, I had 5% of failure rate. I'm hoping that this semester, I can bring it down to 0. They've been using more of the tools. They've been practicing, all right? And not just, in the past, I would create things like do an activity on this topic. So it doesn't really, so using third-party tools can also help you integrate with Blackboard. So we don't have to be afraid of using different free tools. And Classcraft is free, which makes things easier. Does it? Next thing is to connect. I want to share experience and ideas with my students so that they can work through problems, defend their opinions. So suddenly now in my 4 p.m. class, they are very loud, sometimes too loud, that nobody is listening to me, but in a good way, because they are talking about the subject matter. In the past, they are not talking about the subject matter. And if I just walk around, usually I see Instagram, Snapchat on the phone, but now I see Classcraft on the phone. So at least it is working, and I get at least each session of the task that I give, at least 80% of my students complete the task on Blackboard. right? So it's creating a little bit more fun when you gamify the class, all right? So survey polls, think, pair, share, teach back. So these are the things that my students use in class. And then they reflect. So at the end, they do a reflection journal where, what did I do wrong? Did you win? Why did you win? Or if you lost, what did you learn? All right, where they can also use on that. So these are the tools, all right? So I've used wikis, discussion board, journals, Blackboard Collaborate. This is another tool that I love, Blackboard Collaborate. It's as simple as when I have to go somewhere, I discuss with my students or into groups and tell them that these are the sessions available. We will have a Blackboard Collaborate, so they see me live, and then we'll have a discussion regarding of certain things. So after one point, usually the semester is 14 weeks. After the 7th week, I would prepare like 4 to 6 sessions with variety of difficult topics that are possible topics that's coming out for the final exam. Because when I tell them come for consultation, nobody comes. And for them, consultation is, I don't know how to do. That's it. So when I create with the task, then they would book their slots, and 3 or 4 or maybe more could join the session, and we have it. Some of the sessions are in the evening, some of the sessions are in the morning, and sometimes even in the weekend for some students I do that, all right? So I managed to do groups, and they love this, the badges. But again, once more lecturers use that, then there isn't a catch. So the catch is always to give a little bit bonus points. So sometimes I tell the students, if I can't just give you 2 points, because I can't justify every task with points, right? So because when audit comes, then I'm in trouble. So what I do is I tell them, all right, if you do this task, I will add 1 mark to your tests. So if there's a writing, because with language I can play around a little bit with that, in terms of that, all right? And also a lot of media gallery. So in order to reduce, one of the tips that you all can do, if I would like to do a discussion, but I don't want to read, like I said, I teach 5 different subjects, a total amount of nearly 200 over students. So imagine if I were to check their discussion board. In the past, I would give discussions, and I never look at it. And I felt so bad when I do training, and I'm doing the same thing, and I go like, why isn't anyone giving me feedback? So I feel really bad doing that. So sometimes I make them do recorded sessions. So I tell them, take out your phone, I'm going to give this, you don't have to write, record it. Okay, don't look at any papers, because you know when you record and you keep looking, I kind of know. So I'll tell them, I'll give them a situation, just talk to me for 30-40 seconds. So it's easier for me to give feedback. So instead of a 3-4 hours like I used to check on their work, I've reduced it to at least 45, 1 hour, as short as that. So we can be a little bit more creative as we play with the tools to identify. But the aim is, because we're quite advanced with Blackboard, that's why we are able to use many tools and with reasoning of that. But if we're just beginning, use just a few tools and then play around of it and see how well it works. Because not all class, a discussion is good. Because sometimes they just copy paste. And then we ask them to give a peer review, they say, good. No comments. So I tell them, you're not celebrities to say that no comments, all right? So we have to be a little bit more, you need to take time. So it's great if you work 2 to 3 of you all in a certain faculty and then discuss on which or how you could actually do it. It will be much, much, much better. Sorry, where am I? All right, and then for the evaluation, of course we use the course analytics, course reports, and also the performance dashboard to see which students, so the students that has been triggered that is not doing the task, those are the students that I'll call them. and have a one-to-one session and see what are the issues. So analytics really, really helps. So every fortnight, I would actually do my analytics to identify the weaker students. So then the students actually appreciate that, hey, she actually knows that I'm not doing. So I tell them, I stalk you guys, all right? Whether you're doing or not, I can stalk you to see if you're doing my tasks or not, okay? So a little bit, I'm almost there, a recap of this. Gamification is something that I think with students, they are well connected with it. It was able to help and motivate my hospitality students, especially with low language proficiency, because with the gaming, and I've learned a lot of words in gaming, and I go like, wow, that's English, but I didn't know. And they get very excited. So they become slightly more comfortable to open up. Okay, students' behavior and attitude towards a non-major subject has improved in terms of motivation and engagement. Right? So because that I'm able to integrate tools together with Blackboard, it has created a milestone in the results. Okay, so like I said, for the final exam, we had only 5% of failure rate last semester, compared to the previous semester around 20 to 25% of failure rates usually that we have, right? So as educators, the main purpose is always to increase the students' motivation, and also to allow them, because gamification really allows competitive environment. But you have to be careful with overly competitive students, because sometimes you can end up with a fight. And I've had that last semester. So we have to tell, like I said, it's a learning process. Okay? So, and that's the main reason with this generation. I think gamification is the way forward for students to excel in their subjects. Right? That's about it. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions? Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
How do you link the Blackboard itself?
Okay.
The web and all the
Correct. So that means they just go to the website. So every task that I give them, I will copy paste the link. Because for Classcraft, they would actually need to have a code. So I've already made the codes for them and everything, but it's not integrated with Blackboard. It's a third party, so they have to click to the link and go. Yes.
Once they have completed that, then you come back to Blackboard and update your marks.
Okay, so the task, so if you see, Jack, earlier, if you see, let me just go back. Remember, I showed you all this, right? Okay, so if you see when they read here the task, so over here, I don't use this discussion at all on Classcraft. Okay, so here, what they need to do is they need to find their groups, and they actually have to go back to Blackboard. So like I said, this whole part here is just the look. It's just the look. I'm actually brainwashing them, to be very frank. I'm using Classcraft to just brainwash my students. That's why at the end, they finally know that I am doing it. So they tell me that, it just looks like a game. When am I going to fight? I said, yeah, you answered this. You killed him. You won, yay. But there's no violence in it. But that you get some powers and all those things. All right, so they have to go back to Blackboard in order to complete. So all my tasks here, if you see, it's all on Blackboard. So they know the folders. They just go to the folder and complete. So if you see this, the first one here, it's this topic. So when they go to my Blackboard, they will go to this topic, and they will have all the information over there. So writing information in our topic sequencing is very, very, very crucial. Yeah. Any more questions? Welcome. Yes, they do. Yes. So.
You just straight away go to the Classcraft rather than the
Oh, then I'll be in trouble of not using Blackboard. My boss will come up to me. Yeah, so that's why. Like most of my classes, I just use Blackboard, the discussion and all those things. I do a little bit of gamification by giving them badges and all those things. But with this class, I just can't. They just don't want to. It comes to a point where they tell me, I don't care, it's 2%. It's not big of a deal. But then when I change it to this, so I sometimes ask, and what I see them is, I always see them with their games, with this specific class. So most of the kids and most of the boys are always talking about their games. So that is where it motivated me. I Googled and find what kind of tools that I can use, and that's how I came across with Classcraft. So yes, it's more work, but now that I've done the template, then there's no more work for me. And you can use template of other teachers. There are many, 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 many teachers over there as well. So it has boost the students to actually use my Blackboard. So this is, I would say, it's a 30%. My most weightage is still on my Blackboard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, I'd just like to, on behalf of everyone, thank you for that.
Most welcome.
Insightful, and no doubt we can try and incorporate some of that in our practice.
Yes. Thank you very much.